Michael Ashley is our speaker today. He's better known by most people as MASH, and he is adjunct professor, as you can see, at San Jose State. He's also the founder of Full Clarity. And welcome, Mash. Why don't you come on? We'll tell everybody about some of the housekeeping that we need to do later on.
That sounds good.
One,
I'll keep it short so you have plenty of time to talk about how all the amazing things that are happening at Santa Cruz Works. I know I'm super excited to be here and be part of this. I've been following what you've been doing in Santa Cruz Works for a long time, and as sort of your sister incubator accelerator over the hill in San Jose, we want to copy everything you're doing because it's awesome.
no, we're copying you. That's but but yeah, I mean, and by the way, you're going to talk about Full Clarity, and I believe we have an event on March 13th called Remarkable AI. It'll
Okay.
be held at the Coconut Grove in near the boardwalk, part of the boardwalk. Guy Kawasaki will be there with his book signing for his 16th book. He's also leading a fire chat with folks from Midjourney and Microsoft, but MASH you're going to have a table there so people can actually come and see you and learn more about Full Clarity. So
That's awesome.
just wanted to make sure people knew about that before I pass over here.
Thanks. Thanks, Doug. Yeah. So this clinic, though, I'm going to talk more about strategic alignment and, misalignment and the problems it causes and how to fix them and how to identify them and things like that. I'll mention a tiny little bit about Full Clarity at the end, but mostly I just want to be of service to the community here because I know that this is a really big problem in startups, especially in small companies. So I'm going to share my screen and go through my slides. Let's talk a little bit about what happens, with in startups when you find yourself in this situation. As I have experienced many, many times working in startups, having a startup, advising startups, strategic misalignment sucks the life out of your company or your team. If you're here and you're not the owner or the founder of a company or a startup, or you're just part of a team, this as well. Okay. When you are misaligned strategically, there's a lot of stress that happens in the organization. So my name is Michael Ashley. As Doug said, everyone calls me MASH, like mashed potatoes. I am an entrepreneur. Back in the 90s, I used to have, little businesses here and there. I sold gum at high school, all that crazy stuff that we usually do when we're entrepreneurial. But in 2007, I started a company called Fast Pencil. And we were here in Santa Cruz, and we had our office over there in Campbell. We had mentorship from Mark Randolph. He helped us figure out a lot of the problems that we were facing and come up with some solutions. And we ultimately licensed our technology to Barnes & Noble, and then we were acquired in 2011. It was a life-changing event for me, and I have just been obsessed with trying to, get the next one ever since. But it's not that easy. So we'll talk about that a little bit. I've also been an advisor for some startups that have reached billion-dollar valuations and had also huge exits. So Excellion was private equity. Shape Security was acquired by F5. Ubico just went public last year. So I have a lot of experience being in startups, working with startups, working at the executive level. And so I spend a lot of my time these days as a consultant and an advisor to companies. So I help with product marketing and operations, mostly at the consultant level, but as an advisor and as a mentor, I do work with leadership on strategy and vision and, building a culture of leadership across the organization. At San Jose State University, I've been there for 6 years. I teach operations, international business, and I also teach entrepreneurship. And I am the launch director for San Jose State University's first Startup Incubator program. So if there are any San Jose State University students or alumni or faculty or staff out there, please reach out to me and find out how you can get involved. The incubator is a great resource to support entrepreneurship over the hill. And so we have started a partnership here with Doug and Santa Cruz Works, and we're trying to find ways that we can work with each other and feed each other's programs and stuff. So there's a lot of opportunity out there for you if you are interested in a startup. So let's start with this, okay? Because I love fishing. I love going on fishing trips, and it is one of my passions in the world. Why do I do it? Because I get to go places that are exotic. I get to wake up to sunrises like this, or I get to experience things that you just don't get when you sit in an office, okay? I love it. I'm so passionate about fishing, but I love catching also. All right. So fishing is cool, but catching is what I'm most passionate about. Okay. And in the end, I'm using this analogy because we're all fishing and catching. Okay. If you're a business owner or a startup founder, you're fishing and you're hoping to catch customers. Okay. If you're on a team, you're fishing and catching, it doesn't matter. Even if you're just here as an individual because you're interested in strategy or strategic alignment, ultimately, we all have these two components of our mission, right? There's the fishing part, then there's the catching part. And then in the middle is our strategy. Okay. So most of us can get this far, no problem. Okay. So if I said to you, hey, you want to go fishing, and we'll say, well, what's the strategy? And you can come up with a strategy pretty easy. That part's not hard. What is hard is when you're fishing and you're catching has a strategy that is not aligned. And the 5 main reasons why you will get misalignment in your strategy are divergent vision, mission, and goals. Let me talk about that one first. Here, I'll turn that one off. Okay, so when I want to go on a fishing trip, I'm talking to my brother. He's like my fishing partner. We go on these crazy adventures all the time. I have my own personal strategy about what I want to do, where I want to go, what my vision, my mission, and my goals are for this fishing trip. Okay, so like I like to go to exotic places. I like to catch exotic fish, and then I like to release the fish. Okay, it's called catch and release. You catch these beautiful fish, you enjoy them, you take a photo, and then you release them into the water. Okay, so it's very clear to me what my vision, mission, and goals are. Okay, but sometimes if I don't talk to my brother about it ahead of time, if he and I just go on a trip and we don't kind of talk about, well, what's our vision, mission, and goals for this trip, his vision might be the same. I want to go to an exotic place. His mission's the same. I want to catch exotic fish. But his goal sometimes is I want to keep these fish and I want to eat them. I want to eat all of them. So let's pack them up and put them in a cooler and like take them home and let's eat them all. Okay. So even something as simple as that can cause massive friction in an environment like this. So now think about this in your company and how often this happens with you and your co-founders. You may have a vision and a mission that are in sync, and you all agree on it. Like our vision is to do this, our mission is to get there this way, but then your ultimate goals might be out of whack. Okay, so that's the first place where you're going to start to see misalignment in strategies. All right, the second place you'll start to see it pop up is the misalignment of resources like money. Okay, so when I go on a fishing trip with my brother, oftentimes I will get really excited and I want to spend all my money buying new gear. Okay, I got fishing rods I want to get and new lines and reels and cool things. Okay, but if I spend all of our money, if I spend all of our budget on new gear and we show up there and we didn't have anything for bait, it doesn't matter. Okay, if your resources are misaligned, if you're allocating resources in a way that is not aligned with what you want to achieve, then again, you're going to start to see friction between you. Okay. And I've vouched this has happened where it was actually the opposite. I showed up with money for bait, but I didn't have the right equipment because I didn't spend the right money to buy the right equipment to enjoy the trip. And so I had to use my brother's equipment, and he always calls me on it. I'm the little brother, so I'm always asking him, hey, can I use your stuff? And that caused a little bit of friction. And if you expand that into an organization, you can see how just a tiny bit of resource allocation can cause a lot of problems in the organization. Inconsistent communication is one I experience as the incubator director as well as the leader of my own organization and as a consultant and an advisor in different companies. Everybody thinks they're communicating. Everyone thinks they sent the email that, told so and so to do something, or what they were going to be doing, right? Or they send messages on Slack. They think that everybody's reading Slack, or whatever it is. But in my experience, inconsistent communication is the number one cause of strategic misalignment. It's because you make assumptions and you have to fill in the gaps between what you're hearing or seeing and what's really happening. So building a consistent communication channel or over communicating your strategy is one of the things I'm going to talk about later. Will help to alleviate that. The next one is mismatched performance metrics and incentives. This one's a huge one for when you're working in a much larger organization. Once you start to expand past a couple founders and you're starting to work with groups, you need to be able to understand how people are motivated, incentivized, and measured. And in my fishing example, I love to use this example because we hire a guide who's also the captain of the boat. And the guide will take us out to go fishing. All right. But if the guide is measured, if his performance is measured on how long he keeps you out fishing, but if my measurement is how many fish I catch, then they're mismatched. Okay. He may think he did an amazing job. He took me out and we enjoyed fishing for 8 hours. But I might say, I caught 3 fish. That's not what I wanted, So coming up with this is very important. The next one is the incentive. So if the captain is incentivized to keep you out for a long time, then he will just drive you around and take you everywhere. But if he's incentivized to help you catch the fish that you want to catch, which is what we use, tips for. We let them know like, hey, these are the fish we want. We want to catch as many as we can, or we want a wide variety. And then we give them a nice tip afterwards. Then the incentive matches the performance. Okay. And again, I'm using fishing and catching because I love it. And I think that it relates a lot to what, we all do. We all fish and we catch. And so it's important to align the metrics with the incentives. And then the last one is, how do you tolerate risk? You may be so egocentric to think that everyone else in the world is like you. And you might think that your co-founders tolerate the same amount of risk that you tolerate. And on one end, you might be the person who says, I love risk. I love to take huge risks because huge risks have a lot of payout. On the other side, they might not even be communicating it to you, but it might cause a lot of anxiety and stress in someone else to take a big risk. And so this example I use when fishing is very common, and you may have even experienced yourself. Some people, when you go on a boat, don't like to go very far away from the shore because they have this anxiety that they need to be able to see the shoreline. They don't tolerate very much risk because they want to be close to shore. Whereas another fisherman might say, I will go 25, 60 miles away from the coastline because I want to catch the big tuna or the big fish or something that's far away. So their risk tolerance is much higher. And so these 5 pieces are critical to you understanding where strategy starts to get misaligned. All right. So when you look at these things, these are the areas that you want to focus on. But what happens now that like, yeah, I have a strategy and it's important, but how do you communicate that and who do you communicate it to is also very critical. It's very common in a startup or a small company to have pretty good communication across your executive team, right? It's very common to have your weekly executive team meeting. Everyone in the C-suite sits down together, and you have this face-to-face communication meeting. You talk about your strategies and where everyone is and who's responsible for what, etc. Okay. But what I've discovered when I've talked with companies where they're feeling the effects of misalignment is that they're not very good at communicating the strategy all through the organization. All right. All through the organization means that individual contributors know as much about your strategy as you do. They understand the top corporate priorities just as much as you do. Okay. This is critical because it's so common that you assume once you've made the decision in the executive meeting that you're going to be able to just hand it off to people and they'll go carry it out. And that's just not true. That doesn't happen. One thing that I experienced when I was young and I was working at this startup, the founder of the company would have a weekly all hands meeting, and he always told the same story at the beginning of every meeting. And I thought, this is so weird. The guy's always talking about how he started the company and how this guy was instrumental in making it happen and some of the luck that they ran into, but some of the work that they had to do to take advantage of the opportunities. And even now I can replay the story because he burned it into my brain, right? He burned it into my brain that this company was built not just on luck and opportunity, but on the hard work where we took advantage of the opportunities in order to move to the next level. And that's one of the things that I love to do when I'm leading a team or when I'm advising a company is craft your story and over communicate your story. If you don't have a story, or if you're so focused on the technology that you think the technology is the story, then try it. Try sitting down and crafting a story about how you came to fruition, some of the challenges you overcame, and how that feeds into the culture of the company and the strategies that you're choosing now to execute against. All right. So storytelling is a fantastic way to communicate down through the organization, but I'm going to tell you some more. Okay. When you don't align, and these are some things you're probably experiencing right now. These are your red flags that you should be looking for, which will signal to you that you are in trouble with strategic alignment. When you're not aligned, one of the first things you're going to notice is that people who you really thought were going to be great employees are leaving. Or even worse, you're having to let them go because you didn't do a good job of aligning your strategies. Okay. I see this all the time. Top level executives, people who were brought in, given equity, large bonuses, and, expectations were huge that they were going to execute on something that you hired them for. Maybe it was a chief revenue officer or a chief marketing officer, and you bring them in, and then within 6 months, 9 months, or a year, they're gone. They're gone either because they had to leave or because you had to let them go because they were not doing what you thought they were going to do. That's actually more a reflection of your ability to align your strategies and give them the freedom to actually execute what they need to do. Okay. Because one of the things that I've noticed, and this goes to the innovation part of this discussion, is that when you don't have a good strategy, then you resort to productivity tools. You think that you're going to actually get what you want by creating a productivity Gantt chart and making everybody do things on time, and you're gonna start to micromanage everything. You might even go around one of your executives back and start talking to the individual contributors directly because you're so scared that they're not doing what you want them to do. This happens often, okay, and that is because you're not giving them the strategy and then allowing them the freedom to achieve that strategy using their own brain, their skills, their talents, their experience. And if you feel like you're micromanaging or having to micromanage projects, one of the things you might want to do is step back and take a look at, do they have enough information about the strategy and the goals, the top level objectives that we're trying to achieve, that I could stand back and watch them creatively innovate to achieve that strategy. In startups or companies where the executives give accurately communicate the strategy and the objectives, and then allow the individual contributors to creatively innovate solutions, these companies build a culture, not just achieving goals, but they build a culture of innovation. Okay. And that's a key concept for you to get, is that your startup is not just building some technology or hardware or whatever. You're building a culture that needs to be able to survive without you. It needs to be able to survive beyond you. And the culture, if you can make that culture creative and innovative and supportive in alignment with the corporate strategies, you're going to have a much stronger company. All right. The next thing you're going to see is just massive confusion and waste. All right. You're going to walk around and you're going to say, you know, what are you working on? And the people are not even going to know. They're like, I'm working on this task. It's due in an hour. There's a very low level of clarity in the organization. Lots of confusion about, you know, what's the priority? Should you be doing this or this? And they won't know. They're both a priority. I'm supposed to have them done yesterday. But if you have to choose, you need a way to measure that priority, right? And the next one is waste. You know, there's so much inefficiency and low productivity that happens when a company is not strategically aligned. And these are the flags you should be looking for. If you're talking to your founders, your co-founders, and they're saying, man, we're working our butts off, you know, but we're not getting anywhere. Or, you know, we have a team meeting and people don't know what the priority is, or everything was due yesterday. We don't have a capability of making decisions. These are things that should trigger you to consider, like, how well are we communicating our strategy? How well are we all aligned on our strategy? Of course, eroding culture is the next one. This is where a culture that you worked so hard to build, maybe early on when your strategy was clear and it was simple. It was like, I just want to fish and catch anything. That's the strategy. I don't care where we go. I don't care what we catch. I just want to fish and catch. When it's that simple, then everybody can be on board and people are excited about, you know, trying to help fish and catch, right? But as you get more complicated, as you have to target certain fish, or if you have to target certain, seasons, then the strategy has to get more complicated. And if you don't communicate how it's evolving and how the top level priorities are changing, the company, the culture can still remain in this, like, I don't care, I'll do anything type of culture, but they'll start not being rewarded for achieving what they're supposed to be achieving. They'll get criticized for catching fish that you weren't supposed to catch. They'll be criticized for, you know, fishing at night instead of in the morning. You know, there's so many other things that come into your requirements when you change your strategy. So you'll see your culture eroding quickly. People will start talking about, you know, I don't know what's going on here. I don't feel like they're letting me innovate anymore. They're always micromanaging me. You know, I don't know what is happening with the new employees or whatever. Like, that happens a lot. Diminished quality is another red flag. If you notice that your customers start complaining about diminished quality, that's a red flag for you to look at, not the individual contributors or the product or the engineering or you know, your product manager or your project manager. It's a time for you to talk to your C-suite about your strategy and whether that's being executed through the organization. Okay, because diminished quality comes from these other ones. They come from eroding culture, confusion, waste, and leadership churn. All right. So you'll see this and it should let you know, like, it's time to start looking at our strategy and whether we're communicating it accurately and whether there's actually a way to prioritize things, you know, all the way from the top to the bottom of the organization. And then this last one, lost opportunities, is huge. You're a startup, you're moving fast. You have to take advantage of opportunities as they come. You need to be positioned to take advantage of opportunities. And what you'll notice is that opportunities will come and go. And when you see opportunities come and go, that should be another red flag for you that your strategy is not being communicated through the organization, or it may not be aligned with your ability to take advantage of the opportunities. There was one startup that I was working in where they made a huge software purchase, and then it took them 2 years to actually start working on implementing this software. 2 years. They bought this and they did not have alignment on, the resources, the allocation, the objectives, and there were so many problems that they bought this really expensive software, sat on it for 2 years. It wasn't until I came in and we looked at the entire, workflow of the system that they were trying to replace, and created a strategy around how we were going to replace it, and then communicated that strategy to the resources who we were allocated, right? That we were able to start moving this project forward. And once we were moving it forward and people could start to see how this aligned with the ultimate top level strategy of the company, then there was a lot more momentum and we were able to execute on that. So these are red flags I want you to look at in your company, think about them, and if they're happening, then, ask yourself, how are we doing? 1, do we have a strategy? 2, do we communicate our strategy throughout the organization? So what this brings us to now is some concrete things that you can do. All right. And I want to leave you with this. I'll give the PDF of the slides to Doug so he can distribute them if you guys want them. And if you have questions, actually throw them in the chat for me so that, when we get to the question and answer section, I can answer questions. But I want to give you some concrete ways that consultants today work with organizations to help them create alignment. This is a common enough issue, right? But it usually is solved when you're in a, multi-million-dollar company and you have the money to hire a McKinsey or somebody to come in and help you with the problems that you're solving. They'll come in and they'll talk to you and you'll list all of those same problems that I just talked about, and then they'll help you figure out, okay, well, how do we create alignment there? What they usually do is they use a framework. A framework is a way of thinking about your strategy and then communicating your strategy across the organization. Some of the ones that I like are the McKinsey 3 Horizon framework. If you've never heard of this before, there's a link here. I'll click on it in a minute and I'll show you the 3 Horizons framework and what it is. But in general, it's a framework to help you think about your strategy in 3 different horizons. Okay, 3 horizons are important because you can only allocate resources, to Horizon 1 mostly. Like maybe 80% of your resources should be allocated to Horizon 1. Horizon 1 could be like your beachhead. It's what you need to execute on right now. It's your top level priorities for the short term, maybe this year or this quarter or, something short term. And you're thinking about, well, we want to achieve all of these things, and we want to add AI, and we want to go into a new customer segment, and we want to kick off some new marketing, for marketing tests and things. So you have all of these things that you want to achieve in Horizon 1, but it's not possible. It's not possible. I'm just telling you right now, you have to be able to make choices on what things align with your corporate strategy. And then the beauty of the 3 Horizons framework is that when you're working with your co-founders, I guarantee you this has happened to you if you have co-founders. One co-founder says, no, we have to be working on AI right now. And then another co-founder says, no, we need to, develop this new customer segment or this channel. Let's start to go and do sales through channels, right? And then there will be disagreements between the founders and the co-founders about what should our strategy be. And so this is a great framework for you to work together and say, hey, those are good ideas. Those are all good ideas. I'm not going to shoot any of those ideas down. Let's talk about which ones should go into Horizon 1 so that we can allocate resources to it now. Let's talk about ones that should go into Horizon 2, and then maybe some that can go all the way out into Horizon 3. We know they're important. We know we want to look at them sometime, but we just don't want to allocate any resources there yet. All right. And so as an executive team, it's a great way to say, let's hit our strategy for Horizon 1. Let's put AI into Horizon 2. We know it's important, but we cannot dedicate 80% of our energy to it right now, but let's dedicate 10% of our resources to it. Okay, so that when we get to Horizon 2 and we're moving in here, we have some momentum, we can move into the AI, story that we want. That leaves you with another 10% that you could put out into Horizon 3 if you wanted to. You could say, look, we're going to put 80% of our resources in Horizon 1. We're going to put 10% in Horizon 2, and then we're going to actually put 10% on exploring, researching, and understanding the channel sales network and how that might actually benefit us. When you do this, it allows everyone to feel heard. It allows them to understand where their priorities are. So if their organization says, I want to work on AI, but I'm being asked to work on, the immediate goals of the top level priorities, they can make a decision. They can say, well, this is the top level priority. This is, Horizon 2. The next one that I like is called V2 Mom. V2 Mom came out of Salesforce, and it was basically a way to help the organization stay focused on the annual vision, mission, methods of Salesforce. And I've talked with people who have worked at Salesforce. They've experienced the V2 Mom framework, and they loved it. They thought this was actually one of the really great contributions that they got from working at Salesforce. V2 Mom stands for vision and values, methods, objections, and measures. So I'll go through these in a second. I'll show you how they actually look and how they work. But V2 Mom is a way for you at the C level to state your vision and values, and then your mission, methods, objections, and measures. And then each one, it rolls down through each organization so that everything aligns all the way up. This is particularly great in a large organization where you don't actually have the ability to have an all hands meeting or actually have the face-to-face communication that you do in a startup. Okay. The next one, which is similar to this, it's called Objectives and Key Results. You may have heard of it. It's OKRs. OKRs are also something that are good to transition maybe from the very early startup stage to a more mature company. Maybe you're in seed A, B. You want to start to make sure that you don't lose the communication that you have across the organization. Objectives and Key Results is basically setting an objective for the organization, and then the key results that will measure that objective for the organization. Then every department underneath that looks at that and says, how do I personally contribute to this objective and these key results? So each department gets its own OKR, and then within each department, the teams get their own OKRs, and then individuals. So if you look at an organization that is using OKRs well, then every individual in the organization will have an objective and key results that they're striving for, and they will know how that leads to the overall top level objectives of the organization. All right. And then the last one I want to talk about is old, but it is still very valuable, and it has been very valuable in companies for years. It's called the balanced scorecard. The balanced scorecard is a way for you to just measure your company against what you would maybe consider benchmarks for some key performance indicators, some key performance areas, like finance, customer success, and so on. So operations, right? So I'll show you that in a second as well. And these links that are in this PDF, if Doug, if you want to give them out, you can, will lead to websites where you can read more about them and learn about them. But the one that I like the most, and of course, this is going to lead into full clarity and what it is that I do and why I think it's so valuable, is that you want to do this yourself. You want to build a framework that works for your company. You might like V2 Mom, but you also might like OKRs. You might like the 3 Horizon framework for thinking at the C-suite level but you might like this balanced scorecard approach for communicating through the company. What I want to encourage you to do is to think first about, do I have a strategy? Then second, how do I communicate my strategy? And then third, is there a better way for me to maintain communication of the strategy as it changes over time forever with my entire organization, so that everybody feels like they know what the top level priorities are. They are able to make their own decisions without being micromanaged by some project manager who's, trying to give them a task, right? This is a way for people to be able to innovate and accelerate and contribute to the top level objectives of the organization. So when I talk about full clarity, this is the company I started. I started it because I found out that most organizations were lacking two critical pieces: focus and clarity. And then I said, if you took focus and you took clarity and you added alignment, then you would get a platform that helps keep your organization or your team focused and aligned and moving in a rapid way towards your top level objectives. So I have a link in here. If you want to, you can click the link, you can learn more, but I want to wait. Don't go there and sign up or whatever. It's actually kind of complicated to create a strategy and a board that represents your strategy in a way that your organization can actually benefit from it. So before you do, contact me. I'll give you a free trial. Plus, I'll help onboard you and get you set up and show you how it works. There's a free trial where you can test things out. And then I also do a paid pilot program that if you like this, we can work on it for like 30 days and actually build out your strategy in a board, and then invite your team and let people start to understand and work on the strategy and achieve some of these things. So now what I'm going to do is I want to show you these websites. I told you V2 Mom is from Salesforce. If you go to the link in the document, the V2 Mom framework is listed here by Mark. It was written in 2020, and he talks about how they do it at Salesforce. Again, it's very powerful. It's easy to do. And if this works for you, you should do it. You don't need full clarity to go and implement a framework for you. You can do this on your own, okay? The next one is the 3 horizons, all right? If you look at the visual and how the 3 horizons are visualized, this is probably where you're at today, the top one, okay? You probably have things you want to be working on across all of the horizons, and you actually don't know. People don't know, like, well, should I be working on this one or that one or whatever? And it's total chaos. But when you use a 3 horizons type of a framework, you can say, look, the gold things are our top priorities. These are the things that are going to help us to achieve our corporate strategy in the first horizon. And then we're going to allocate maybe some 10%, 5% of our resources to this other thing in Horizon 2. And then maybe we'll spend, 1, 2, 3% of our resources out here in Horizon 3 to make sure that we're ready to move as we cross these horizons. Very, very powerful way to communicate with your executive team and also with your organization. The next one is OKRs. If you look up OKRs, you're going to read tons of stuff about Andy Grove, John Doerr, but mostly you're going to read about the book that was written called Measure What Matters. John Doerr wrote the book on OKRs. It's a very simple idea. I have used it in startups before, and it helps people to understand how their contribution adds up to the top level corporate priorities. The next one's the balanced scorecard. If you go back and read the original article published here in the Harvard Business Review, it was in 1992. So again, it's kind of old, but it is powerful. So if you think about, how do you measure performance across the organization, they recommend thinking about it in terms of maybe just 4 areas. Okay, your financial perspective, your customer perspective, your internal business perspective, and then innovation and how these align with your strategies. So you should have an innovation strategy. You should have a customer strategy. You should have an operations strategy, a financial strategy, right? Each of your strategies will be in alignment with your top level objectives. This measures how you're getting there and in achieving them, all right? And then the last thing I want to share with you is just a shot of Clarity and what I have in Clarity that can help you to maintain access to your strategy and how it's communicated through the organization. I showed you that these were frameworks that are available online. You can go and use them yourself. But if you wanted to actually take one of those frameworks and you wanted to invite your team to come in and participate with you, you can actually add your team members so that they can come in and see it. You can use Clarity and AI because we're totally integrated with generative AI to help you and assist you in crafting your vision, crafting your mission, refining your strategy, and so on and so forth. These things are built in here. And then finally, you can use one of these boards, like let's just use the 3 Horizons template for an example. If you go into the 3 Horizons template, you'll see that it's really easy to say, what am I going to do in Horizon 1? In Horizon 1, I might, say, these are our top priorities, our key customers, our go-to-market strategy, and some key milestones. Something very simple. It gives you a visual representation that you can then use when you talk with your founding team. And then the last piece I'll mention is that there is AI, generative AI integrated throughout this entire platform. So when you need to, you can get a summary of all of the progress that's being made in the organization by looking at the data and analyzing the data. Then we can create summaries that are really quick and easy for you to read, so you don't have to dig into everything. But if you like to dig into everything, you can. And you can go all the way down and you can generate summaries on each individual strategic alignment board, or you can go down and read like what's happening in specific areas. And then the last piece I'll talk about is how you visualize progress. As an organization, it's important for you to know, are we aligned? Are we moving in the directions we want? And when I look at this graph, it's a radar diagram. It shows that we're making great progress on these areas, but no progress on these areas over here. And that allows me now to go in, talk to my team, ask them what's going on, and if there's anything that I can do to help them to achieve these objectives. So that's all that I have right now for the presentation. I will present this. Let's see, how do I do this? Slideshow view one more time so that I'm here. And I will leave you just with this page, and I'll try and answer some questions for you now. We have 15 minutes left, Doug, and I'm not sure.
Let's open it up for for questions from the audience, and Melina will field some of those for us. Meanwhile, I just want to say I really enjoyed you did a great job on this, and I can't wait to see Full Clarity at Remarkable AI event. I especially like the alignment frameworks that the McKinsey, the V2MOM, the OKR, Balanced Scorecard, all of those. You didn't name one important one, I think, and that was punitive compensation. And the reason I say that is when I was at WebEx in the early days, like in the first 2 years of WebEx's inception, we had a churn problem. We found that something like 40% of our customers would leave. And of course, sales would blame marketing would blame engineering would blame sales, or but just a vicious circle. And Subra, who was the CEO and founder, he figured it out. He called the team meeting and he said, here's the way it's going to work. Until we get churn down below 8%, no executive gets their compensation bonus. And I swear to God, in 3 months, it was down to 8% because everybody had to align and start working together, right?
Yep.
And so anyway.
Instead of blaming each other, right? They were probably blaming each other before. Well, if their marketing's not doing what they're doing, sales isn't doing it. Yeah.
Aligning the mission, the objectives, everything, and then once that happens, the gears mesh and the team and the company is just firing, right?
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
Anyway, what do we have? Melina, any questions from the audience?
No questions yet.
All right. Well, this is your chance to ask MASH anything, everything you never needed to know until now. This is your chance. Right.
I see a bunch of LinkedIn's in here. It's super cool. You guys want to connect with me on LinkedIn. I love it. And I post things on there as well. But I guess if I have a couple more minutes to talk about some of the cool things we're working on, because AI is super cool. And thanks for letting me be part of the Remarkable AI event. I have enough time to execute on one of our primary objectives right now, which is much, much stronger generative AI integration into the platform so that it behaves more like you would want it to behave, where you can go in and you can just ask questions like, hey, what's happening, and get results and answers. And then you can actually make requests of it, like, what, we just had a meeting and we want to change our strategy. We're no longer going to differentiate on price, we're going to differentiate on quality. Can you tell me what this is going to affect throughout the organization? And potentially have the generative AI go in and say, if you make a change like this at the top level, this is going to affect some of the things that are happening all the way down through the organization, and then maybe these are some ways that you can alleviate that stress. So there's a lot of cool things happening. I hope by the time the event comes up, I'll be able to demo them.
I'm super excited. I mean, having been through almost 4 decades of different companies, and you just know what, if only this tool had been available, but anyway.
Well, what do you guys have any questions? I know that there's some people are
We have a
just,
question from the audience. It says, how do you suggest determining alignment for potential new investors and or advisors?
oh, that's great. All the way up through the board. That's a fantastic question. As a matter of fact, I kind of did stop at alignment at the C-suite, but alignment all the way up to the board. And then if you think about it, actually, from the board all the way through all of their portfolio companies needs alignment as well, right? And so one of the things that you can do when you use a platform like Full Clarity is you can do exports. You can export reports, and these reports are very powerful when you share them with your advisors, your mentors, and your board. The board, they're never going to read anything. They're never going to dig in down here. They're never going to dive down, but they need their updates. And so you get a chance to meet with them once a quarter, and you put together your PowerPoint slides or whatever. But imagine if you could generate some information to go on the PowerPoint slides that helps to explain how you're executing against the strategies that you promised them that you were going to execute on. So that's the kind of data we're trying to capture so that you can have it, you can put it into a framework, and then you could potentially export it and have some, slides that you could share with other investors or advisors.
Thank you. And we have another question, which is, how can we align our pitch deck with what customers are willing to buy? I have found some cybersecurity customers are not sure exactly what they want sometimes.
That's a different question, but I would almost recommend you to change your pitch deck to being a customer discovery deck, because if you don't know what your customers want, or if you actually are still talking to them and discovering that they want something else, then I think that's a huge opportunity for you to be curious and just really sit with them and understand what they're saying. Sometimes, you'll learn way more from a customer engagement if you don't try to sell anything. Just don't. Just talk to them for a half an hour and ask them questions. And if they come to a place where they say, wow, I have that, problem and I wish I could solve it, and you have an action you could talk to them about, that's great. But most of the time, when you're pitching, you should not be telling or selling.
I mean, you're such a great point there, Mash, because if they're asking you for things that aren't within your mission, then yeah, you need to go back and do some market validation. We highly recommend our partner here, Innovation Within, so www.innovationwithin.com. And it's essentially the Steve Blank lean startup, but you can do it all online and get out there, interview customers, learn how to ask open-ended questions that are not leading them, right? I mean, if you're saying, well, what would you pay for this? No. You need to, Innovation Within will teach you how to ask the right kind of questions so you're getting information that doesn't have subjective bias built in.
Yeah,
so
yeah. I just met James, Innovation Within. We talked and he gave me a demo, and it's really powerful software. It's pretty cool the way he's taken the philosophy of Steve Blank and the model of the lean startup, or the business model canvas, and put it into an application where you can keep track of all the things you're thinking. You know, you don't lose it like a piece of paper that you were writing on. You know, it has a full history. You can go back to when you had dumb ideas. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's good stuff. And with the AI coming in every which way, it's
Yep.
only going to get better.
Yep.
So, anyway, again, Mash, thank you so much. I'm just so happy to know that you're actually in our community, Santa Cruz here, and we'll see more of you. We're also both part of the VMT group. Anyway, this is just
Yep.
awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to shut my video in my mouth. Okay.
Okay. Well, we like your video and mouth, but anyway, so, and then everybody, if you're local, our CEO Works Luncheon's coming up, and that's essentially how to build a successful team. And then on next slide is Remarkable AI. So that's when Guy Kawasaki will be book signing his 16th book and putting on a fireside chat with Lila Tretzkoff, who's the deputy CTO at Microsoft and did all the AI integration, and Claire Delaunay from FarmNG that has this incredible AI robotic farming tools, and more. Midjourney. If you're in the area, please sign up. It will be a fantastic event, and I think that's about it. I think we need to thank our partners again. These are the people that support us. So thank you again, everybody, for attending today. And with that, we say adieu.